it's not potential. like
Right.
it it's it's obedience. Actually, that's what that is.
Yo.
Because he's already said, "Hey, you're going to be this."
Mm-hmm.
So if you become this, that's you being obedient. If you don't, that's disobedience. Either way, he still loves you, whether you do that or not.
Yeah.
But like he's there in time, there, and he knows if you make this step, this is how it's going to play out. If you make this step, this is how it's going to play out. He just knows because he's already there.
Yeah.
So potential is, man, I see this in you, but in God's eyes, I've said it already. So you have to catch up to me. You have to choose to catch up to me.
Yes. Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, but how I'm seeing it is potential is our perception of what God has laid out for us as a reality. We call it potential because we haven't experienced it yet. And we know we can get there, but maybe still have some doubts in our faith. And so we have to choose to take that walk, but the path has been laid for us.
Hmm.
And we call it potential.
Yeah, because we can't. I was just thinking that we can't grasp that concept, and
That
we can
right,
only.
the reality is different for God, like you said, because he spoke it into existence, right? It's an expectation. It's difficult for us as humans to put ourselves there because we haven't experienced it yet. So to make ourselves comfortable, we call it potential, as in maybe it's okay if we don't do it.
Hmm. Well, and right as being image bearers, we try to. I don't, mimics the wrong word, but we try to kind of implement that when we see potential in others. But like we don't have that ultimate speaking power that God has, or that
Right.
ultimate. So like we may, because we are human, see things in error, which God doesn't. So we may see it like, oh, they could be this, but that's not what God has said that they should do. We see certain things in them, right? Like when we see people say, man, like in the church, they'll say, man, you should be a preacher because you can communicate. But really, you're a organizational boss
Hmm.
and you should be a CEO somewhere. Or you should be, a life coach somewhere, something like that. But like we'll say you should preach because you can communicate. But no, you're just a good communicator and that's your gift. So we see the potential, but we don't know where it should be. But when God says it, it's not it's not potential in the same way that we say potential because we can't control it
Right.
or we don't have
Now,
the ability to do that.
let's say that God has spoken something into his existence. It's become an expectation, right? Think about how many times we've said about someone, or maybe even to yourself, wow, what a shame he didn't meet his potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we inherently understand that there is something negative to not meeting your potential. But how much deeper is it really if it's something God has spoken into you? He didn't meet his potential. Now imagine if God, you have moved on from this earthly life and you have to hear those words. I spoke this into you, and what you saw as potential, you did not meet. And what I need you to know is that was actually an expectation. Talk about mindset shifts
Yeah.
when you feel a calling and think of it more as an expectation that God has for my life, the reality He has set forth, and the path He laid out for me. And I'm down here foolishly calling it potential. I could potentially fulfill that, but maybe it's all right if I don't. Maybe I wanted something else for myself, which
Mm.
there's your free will.
Uh, that part. Oh, this is the part that blow my mind about God, right? like, like I could set you up and just have you do this, but I'm gonna give you the option to be like, meh. I mean, you bear my image, so like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna give you the freedom to do things that you have the power to do. Ultimately, I want you to come alongside me, but you have the choice to be like, I'm feeling something else.
Yeah. And by the way, it's all hard.
Right. Right.
Choose your hard.
Right. Gosh. Wow, that's good.
And then it goes back to proverb, like the fear of the Lord. And it keeps saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps saying it. So to know what it is to fear the Lord and to follow his instruction. If we just in the little conversation we've just had, the difference in knowing that and being on the path to what he has called for you and not knowing and just being out here
Right.
all willy-nilly.
Right. One is more wise and one is more foolish. And
And
not
one
in
leads
like a
to
bad way.
destruction and one
Yeah.
leads to everlasting life.
Right. Oh, the proverbs they just play out so well. Yeah, man, that and the thing is like, right, we talk about potential and being disobedient not and being disobedient. Sorry. We have to be done with sugarcoating like and that's the thing like Proverbs holds no punches. So
Right.
like if we're and Jesus held no punches, right? So let's use these two things. The wisest man, human man, and then Jesus, right? So let's model our lives in that space, right? We have to be okay with following what God says and not following what we want. And and being okay with it being heavy and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I got to do this. Right? Cuz sometimes we've gone away from the fear of the Lord in the sense of understanding his greatness and his power. So when we understand his greatness and power, we have to reverently acknowledge that he has the power to do anything, good or bad,
Right.
right? Or favorable or unfavorable,
There you
um,
go.
reward or consequence, punishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all these things can be true. He is loving and he wants to express his love and he has so much for us. We need to just jump on board with what he's saying. So so that we can do what he says to do. So when he says something, and it feels heavy, it feels hard, it feels contrary to what we want. As we grow and become more wise, there's less of the fight for what I want and more of just like, okay. Like, because in essence, those of us that believe and really want to follow what he's doing, we get there either way. Are we
Mm.
going to go kicking and screaming? Or are we going to get there hold handing, right? Because if you think of like a baby or like a toddler and like, hey, we're going to walk into this store. I don't want to go, blah, blah, blah. Either way, your parent is going to pick you up and you're going to go kicking and screaming into that store, or they're going to hold your hand and we're going to walk in and everything's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we going to hold his hand? Or are we going to go kicking and screaming, getting drugged to where he needs us to be?
Obedience, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. We
Uh,
could do a whole we could just do the Proverbs pod. Like it's the three of us. We're on the Proverbs pod. Like, this is it. We're gonna talk Proverbs literally for the rest of our lives. This is the Proverbs pod. We're just gonna keep
yeah,
reading it.
right?
Man, I was thinking of that. I was like, man, should we just perpetually go through Proverbs and keep it on our minds and just like have this wisdom? Like 5 years from now, we will be so equipped for life. We just every 31 days we're cycling through Proverbs. Like that's a
Yeah.
cheat code.
Right? Oh man.
Because I was like, well,
That,
what are we gonna do next? Like, what book should we do next? I was like, man, what if we cycled through Proverbs? I was like, I don't know. I was like, what other Old Testament wisdom are we missing? That's what I was thinking too.
yeah.
Like, not saying obviously Jesus' words are no good, but what I mean, I've missed this gem my entire life.
Mm.
Like my entire life and then my entire adult life. Like, why has Proverbs never been on my radar?
Yeah. Like, because I've only ever really heard it in pieces and like how someone else wanted to apply it.
Mm, yeah.
And like, so I get to some of the verses and I'm like, man, that's so familiar. And then like, that's how I heard it applied. And it's kind of funny because I'll read something and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
here's here's where that is. And then
Yeah.
I interpret it differently
Yeah.
because
Man.
it's not even always the words I've heard spoken.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Yeah. And as we've been going through it, it's like the themes are very similar. So like you said, man, I've read this before. Like he's saying it, but in a different way. I'm like, man, you're such a good communicator. Because like I'm trying to have you get this. Like, have you got this yet? Son,
Yeah.
have you gotten this?
Yeah.
But it's so powerful. Yeah, man. Yeah, the holistic look, just like you said, not just a piece that someone's interpreting, but like reading these whole chapters and it's like, what is the theme of this? And then like each section has a little theme, but then they also can wrap from the beginning to the end.
Mhm.
It's like, man, yeah, I feel like it's a level up.
All that.
But again, man, like daily word, it's like every day I'm in this
Mhm.
book,
Yeah.
and every day I'm talking about, I'm communicating. Like I have to
Yes.
process enough to say, this is what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
So it's not just a blanket read. It's like I got to contribute. And I think there's something about audibly doing it too, not just typing it, but
Yeah,
literally.
not just typing it. I mean, I think writing it for me personally might be on the same level, but that's not necessarily sharing it. And so I
Hmm.
think that for me has been the real piece,
Yeah.
because then it's no longer just personal consumption.
Hmm.
It's something I put out, can get feedback on, can ask for feedback.
Right.
Like, hey, did you see this the same way? Am I missing something? Right.
Yeah.
This has so far been my favorite form of Bible study for sure. Like 100%.
Yeah. Because you still get to read it, digest it, say something, but it's also the space to hear other people's, what hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really
And I
good.
think like the way my mind works, if I'm hearing someone else read it and give their thoughts on it, I may not in every scenario had the chance to digest it for myself.
Mm,
I'm just taking it for how their perception
right.
of it was. Um, so this really forces that. And I think that's what I really like about it as well.
Yeah. It's all good. I just, yeah, this is a transformational time in my life for sure. And this, I don't know if it's because I'm reading Proverbs or I'm reading Proverbs and it's helping me, or it's just all this time. But it's definitely, it's just so many things, like the theme of anger, the theme of speaking purposefully, the theme of gathering wisdom, and the theme of giving wisdom. Those are the things that are hitting me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be angry, don't be an idiot. Learn and teach. So
Yeah.
those things stick out in every all the chapters, and then I have to pick a couple of things to talk about. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's 8:30.
Yeah, I got to roll.
I mean, I don't have to roll, but I know you do. Man, I appreciate everything. It's been fantastic.